Hey everyone, I hope you're all having or had a great day and welcome back to Theonopolis. So today it's a little bit of a throwback episode because this is something you guys have already seen if you have seen the cinematic overview of Theonopolis, but I thought it was just a little bit of a different building than usual, so it was just like, yeah, I want to show it because it's just not something I've ever built before. And I already made a mistake right at the beginning, like right now there's already a mistake. Well, I wanted to say happening, but it already happened. But anyway, so for the Western Watergate, it was a little bit of like, what can I do with this area now that the area is a little bit, well, actually all of it has changed. The Skilla ride that I built in, I think, like around the 10th episode is completely gone, although in this footage you still see it. It literally disappeared overnight because I just had the idea of like, alright, I'm basically reinventing the area, and I was always, or not always, but when I came back to Theonopolis I was a little bit like, the Skilla ride, you know, it was great when I built it, but when I look back at it, it's just like, yeah, it doesn't look really great. So that ride is gone, though you will see it in the background because, as I said before, it's a little bit of a throwback episode today, because this all was built even before we built the reef of the dancing crabs. That's how old this footage is, which doesn't say that much, it's around like a week or 2 weeks old. But for the Western Watergate, for a long time I had the idea to make like some kind of cave system on this part of the island, on this part of Theonopolis. But recently I was just like, yeah, the cave system wouldn't be that large because we barely have any space in this area left. And it was just like, alright, we are slightly tapping more into like a fantasy style when it comes to like the story of Theonopolis, so I was also just like, I can do something with this place without making it too massive. And you know, when I try to build small things, it never works out well because they usually tend up to be larger, or rather, I said larger. Now I'm just getting hungry by talking. But anyway, with the Western Watergate, it was designed to not be that big, and you can already see the mistake. Because I wanted to, you know, have that ball drop and that would like open up the gate. Yeah, that didn't work because the ball would just be, well, it would be raised again and then would drop again, and yeah, for something like opening up a gate, the ball would have to be, you know, it would need to be stationary as soon as it dropped. And then also with the cogs and everything, they all stopped at like different times, and I'm not the greatest with like effects or, you know, somewhat of like a show like thing. So, you know, the ball was quickly dropped. Well, it didn't drop, that was the problem, but well, it dropped but it didn't stay down so quickly because, you know, going into the more fantasy area, I was just thinking water is also like a great power source, or, you know, something that sets this whole thing in motion. So the cogs or gears were just left to continuously turn around, and then, well, I'm still juggling around with other things to use. So later, or like right now actually, I put in the ironwork so that if, let's say, a worker is here, he wouldn't just drop down probably to his death. Like, there's a little bit of safety involved in this part of Theonopolis. And thinking of that, I am working on, or I'm not working right now, but I plan to make a little bit of a better POV for the marble road coaster, which you could also have seen in the cinematic overview of Theonopolis. I don't know why I have postponed that until like now, but yeah, that entire area or the Plaza of Trades was built off screen. It's not finished. Like those two rides that you saw are really the only things ready. And then also the waterfalls that are near that place are yeah, that was also like an overnight thing. Like, well, not overnight. I actually try not to build at night anymore because Alia might know I tend to go a little bit crazy when night starts coming around and I'm still building. Yeah. Also, again, with this building, I'm not going to show you guys all of it. Like, you can see the end result in the cinematic overview. But just like the baselines, so the scenery or like nature surrounding it, and of course Rockwork, not Rockward. Words today don't really go well, but then that's kind of normal for me, so let's just move on from that. But yeah, the Rockwork I'm not going to show you guys because that's kind of boring. That's really the thing that you need to do if you don't have any inspiration. But for these, well, this is one of the two towers. So again, you could have seen the entirety of this building in the cinematic overview, so I'm probably going to link that somewhere above if I haven't forgotten that by the time this goes up. But these towers were a little bit strange. Like, I don't know where I actually got the inspiration for to make a tower-like structure in the beginning. You can also see the gates opening and closing in the background, which really annoys me. I don't know why I didn't close them, or, well, I wanted to say pause the game, but then, you know, when I was working on the cogs, that wouldn't really have worked. Anyway, so I don't know where I got the inspiration for this tower. I think it's like a little bit of like inspiration from the clock tower that I've built previously, and then just complete madness. But I really liked how they ended up. It's like, it's somewhat realistic, and with somewhat it's obviously not realistic at all, but I mean, we can work around that. But it's not that it's like, yeah, this is really like fantasy, like really like this couldn't exist anywhere but Theonopolis. But there is like some slight mechanics to it, because of course with the Watergate you need to have a huge waterfall that goes over it just to make it look pretty. In fact, if the water doesn't flow, it's kind of bare. Like, it's kind of weird when the water doesn't flow. But yeah, I opted out of like huge windows on this tower because obviously it's more of a functional building that later got like really made prettified. That sounds a lot like petrified in my brain, which when you say it out loud, of course it doesn't, but we all know that my brain doesn't make any sense. But yeah, for the tower, of course, it actually has double freezes. So yeah, this tower could also just really easily be placed in like the Midas district, which is the name I came up with for the wealthy district, so that it finally actually has a real name. Like, finally. But then it's just a little bit too functional. Like the Midas district or the wealthy district, I think it's easier for you guys if I call it the wealthy district, but yeah, the Midas district is the name of that place now, which does contain like Odeon Square and the Odeon and such. But it's a little bit too functional because the Midas district is a little bit less functional and more just pretty. And this tower really needed to look a little bit more functional. Also to fit in with the rest of the harbor, because the harbor is actually pretty... It's like the if you downgrade the Midas district and then add some functionality to it, that's what you get in the harbor. Again, just a quick look at the now gone Scylla, right? It was somewhat nice knowing you. Somewhat. Yeah, I think like I was happy with the Scylla ride for like 2 weeks. And then I'm just like, I'm looking at it right now and I know that it's gone, but it still irks me because it's not a good dome. Or not like a complete dome. And of course, on top of the temple, let's add some temple, or on top of the temple, on top of the tower, let's add a little bit of like a temple feel, just to make it even more fantasy-like. Yeah, I don't know where I really, definitively got the inspiration for this entire tower. I mean, it looks pretty, that's really all I can say about it. Of course, need to add a little bit of statues so that it's even more, well, not fancy, because this is actually realistic. But yeah, before you ask, yeah, those are statue noses. Those are I actually like how they are slightly sticking out, but of course I had to change that to make it a little bit realistic. Little bit just. I say that as if like anything of Theonopolis is realistic. No, definitely isn't. That's why I made a point of the story of Theonopolis to make it a little bit more fantasy-like. To give myself an excuse to build more weird buildings. Yeah. But then again, we also have an Atlantis ride. Which again, I don't believe is true. Or not, I don't believe the story is true. I'm going to stop myself there. Anyway, actually, now that I look at it, this tower has 4 freezes. And now that I have to think about it, yeah, I do feel a bit like this pediment is a little bit of like a cop-out. It's a little bit easy on, well, the rest of the tower is kind of busy already, and there are going to be 2 towers, as you again might have seen in the cinematic overview of Theonopolis, but then of course on to the, let's say, gate. Actually, I don't, for some reason this was like blocked out of my memory. And yes, those are the, well, I think of a hangar, or I'm probably going to mispronounce that, but like this place where you store aircrafts. It was a weird day when I built this. A weird but fun day. But of course you need to, hide things. I mean, that's the best reason to make big buildings, because you can hide things in them. So if there's anything that, doesn't look as great or is like sticking out, just make it look bigger. Or just make the building bigger so that you can hide it. I don't know how many mistakes I've hidden well, that wasn't going to be a very good sentence anyway, so I'm going to stop myself again. But for the gate, it's really, I said in the beginning of the episode, like, oh yeah, it's going to be a small building. Here's what you get when I try to build a small building. I'm also thinking right now of like a cabin I built. Like that turned into, well, by definition, it's still a cabin. Though if I show it to you guys, you would probably think it's a manor. But again, by definition, and I've looked it up, it's still a cabin. I don't think I'm making a good case for myself when I continuously have to say, by definition, it's still a cabin. But yeah, I quickly turned the gates brown to make them a little bit like wood, but that just wouldn't really fit in here. Like, it's, you know, if you have a fantasy like building, just go all the way. Don't, I say that as I've, with so many buildings, I said like, oh, this is a realistic part, of course. No. Well, here I try to make it realistic because, of course, the water has to come from somewhere. Although the blocks that I usually use to make things look like blacked out didn't work. So I had to use the basic pieces. And I think these are one of the few basic pieces that you will find in Theonopolis. I'm not joking. I really hate using basic pieces because they just shine too much. Because it's just... Also, I don't know, it just looks like plastic. I think if you use basic pieces, you have to just settle for that they look like plastic. But when it comes to like realistic building or realistic engineering on this part, the water is supposed to like come out of those like basic pieces, or I tried to make it seem like there were holes that were just really dark, but that's where the water is supposed to like come out of. So it's actually not really coming out of like the back as you would most likely think with like a waterfall. It's only coming out of those holes. And I don't know if it like, it's just, well, I build it so I like it, or if it's just like, it looks somewhat okay. But I wanted to also build some kind of stoa-like building, or like canopy, or just, you know, something overhanging so that it just gets a little bit more volume, as it were, without making the building, well, I'm making the building bigger, but it's not like adding that much of like closed space, or not making like that blocky feel, if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, I should probably get back to the building because I'm wandering off again, which again is very normal for me, but yeah, I'm made it so that it's like only like one half of the roof, but like another mistake that I kept in, because I mean, it works out in some way, but it's just when you look at it from afar, it just doesn't work out, because it's just that sharp of like an angle that it's just like, yeah, it's probably better if you just add the whole roof, which I do right now. But it's, again, kind of a weird building. Also, again, tried to build something small. Obviously didn't work out. Adding another canopy or stoa-like structure at the bottom just because it looked a little bit better. It made the building a little bit more open and airy and not as like intimidating, which is a feel I didn't want to have for this building. Because this is really like, let's say, a connection building. Actually, I might make this into like, if I get, well, a good screenshot in like Plant Zoo of the zoo that I'm trying or going to try to build. I might make like, if they have that in Plant Zoo, add like a screen in the inside of the gate so that it looks like there's a connection between Theonopolis and whatever park I'm going to build in Plant Zoo. Because I think by now you guys will know for sure, yeah, I'm going to play Plant Zoo on this channel when it comes out. But that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, don't forget to like the video or subscribe. And I hope you all have an amazing day. And see you in the next video. Bye bye.